Lead sources now are across the board. I mean, again, they're FISBOs, canceled, expired. We do aggressive call blocks every single morning, non-negotiable. We have a virtual boiler room. People can't be here. We just purchased this 9,000 square foot of a private office space, and the whole concept.
Welcome, LabCoatAgents. Excited to talk to Rafay Qamar today. We're going to talk about how to go from 0 to 100 million in 3.0 or 3 years. 0 to 100 million in 3 years. Who doesn't want to know how to do that? Hand raised right here. Excited to hear your story, Rafay. You and I were talking briefly. You got into the business. Give us your background. You got in the business in 2014, owned a brokerage, sold a brokerage, now run a team. Take us back to the beginning phase here so we get your background.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Jason, first of all, for having me on board. I appreciate it. What an honor. We're one of the largest online broker and real estate communities, and to be part of this. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm an immigrant. I moved to US in 05, 06. Came here for college and got into banking industry and appreciated it. I did pretty well. We were one of the top investment bankers in the country for BMO Harris Bank, but just not gratifying enough. Fast forward 6-7 years later, came home frustrated, turned on TV and saw this $1 million listing, just episode, I think it was like maybe episode 3, season 1, and I saw Josh Flagg, I think it was one of the Joshes, and I'm like, dude, this is cool. Like these young kids, just in these awesome suits, and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars commission. Like I should be doing this. This is fun. So I remember it was 2013 October. I ended up getting my license. The bank found out. They gave me 2 options. They're like, either we're going to terminate and fire you, or you resign yourself. So not much of an option. So I'm like, all right, I'll keep my dignity and resign. So ended up resigning and started cold turkey in real estate in 2014. Started with a brokerage here in Chicago and did about $10 million my first year, just hustling nonstop. Didn't matter if it was a rental listing for $1,200 or a $30,000 foreclosure. Foreclosures were big at that time, somewhere in West Side or South Side. So I was driving all around, just trying to get experience. And then after that, just rest is history. 10 million first year, did about 16 million second year. Third year, I opened up my brokerage, did about 22 million. Fourth year did about 31 million. And then in 2019, I sold my 2 brokerages, one in Chicago, one in Skokie, to my partners and merged with Compass as a small team. And that's where the title comes in, 0 to 100 million in 3.0. In 2019, we did about 30 million as a team. We did about 75 million in 2020. And then last year we crossed $107 million. This year our goal is $250 million for the team.
All right, so I'm just doing back of the envelope math here. You almost double every year. In 1 year you tripled. So that's pretty substantial growth. But the one thing I don't want to look past something you said there right away from the beginning, and I think people do overlook this. Your first year, you were willing to hustle, you were willing to do rentals, you did 10 million in your first year, which is impressive in its own right, but that was just out of sheer grit, right? You wanted it all, you were trying to do whatever you could do.
I remember, yeah, absolutely. I remember my brokerage, the average age was about 57 or 58, and I just did not care what they threw at me. I told them, I don't care if it's a rental, I don't care if it's a foreclosure, I will drive anywhere and everywhere. And I put in the hours. I remember I would wake up at 7, 8 a.m., struggle with FISBO calls, just be terrible at them. And then just start my day at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. and just start driving. Like I said, 30 minutes one way for a $1,200 lease. And again, you know what? I think that all of that started paying off. I consider these leases to be annuities, especially for newer agents, because every year there's a payout. It's a renewal, and then there's a big pop when they buy. So you just have to be in contact with them. I say money's in the follow-up. You just got to be on top of your game when it comes to follow-up. And then no matter what the client is, if it's a good client, high price point, low price point, everyone eventually will be a buyer or seller, unless they're going to just be homeless, which unfortunately happens. But for the masses, they're looking for a roof on their head.
And tell me again, your volume in 2021?
2021, last year we did $107 million.
107. Okay, gotcha. So I mean, we're gonna figure out how he did this, and I'm looking. He said in 3 years, so you go from 19, you did 30 million to 107 million in 2021. I'm super interested in that naturally, but I'd like to think that we've just identified one of the secret ingredients that people overlook. It's grit, it's hustle, and if I were to pick up a trend, I'd be like, oh yeah, year one, you kind of did everything you could do, whatever you needed to do to get going. And correct me if I'm wrong, that type of mentality is what led you to the 107 million in 2021. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think grit, hustle. It's funny you say those two characteristics, because when we're looking to hire new team members, those are the first two things I say. I'm looking for grit, looking for hustle, looking for collaboration, looking for longevity. Right, that's the kind of secret sauce for the team members. But yeah, man, I mean, that's exactly what it was. It was just nonstop, tons of rejection. I made every mistake in the book, I would say. But the idea is that this is a simple business, but it's not an easy business, right? And that's why there's
okay.
It's very simple. It's a simple business. There are a handful of things we have to do, right? 7, 8 things. I believe in the Pareto rule, 80-20 rule. There are 20% of activities or tasks that we need to do on a daily basis that'll move the needle 80% of the time, right? Too often, brokers are doing 80% of the activities or tasks that are moving the needle, maybe 10, maybe 20%, and they get frustrated. They're like, listen, we're putting all this effort, putting in the hours, but the activity is just not justifying the volume that's coming in. So you kind of got to take a step back and see what are those things. So prospecting, right? Follow-ups, showings, negotiations, follow-throughs, doing what you're telling clients, check-ins, sending evidence of success. I mean, there's multiple things we can break down, but really when you roll up into activities, about maybe 5 or 6 activities that everyone really should be doing on regular basis. And what I tell brand new agents that are in my team now, we've got a team of 27 people. We're bringing on another 7 people, and again, gearing up for this $250 million goal this year. It's again, really quickly figure out what that Pareto rule is for you. In other words, figure out what are those 20% of activities that are going to move the needle 80% of time for you. Some people are not comfortable with cold calling. Some people are just not comfortable with FISBOs and expireds and whatnot. Well, then find a replacement. What is it? Are you comfortable going and hosting open houses? Are you comfortable farming an area in a more creative pattern? Are you comfortable with maybe LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook marketing? Then figure out, again, your Pareto rule. Figure out what your 20% is, and then do it all the time consistently. Of course, pivot from time to time, but do it consistently.
Tell me a little bit about your 27 people on the team. What, how many members are staff members? How many are full-time agents? Show me what that looks like a little bit.
Yeah, so the structure, and again, I'll kind of, when we started this, it was me as full-time person, my director of operations as full-time person, and 2 part-timers. And we grew that in 2019, we grew it up to 35 million in 2020 when coronavirus, so the pandemic was a big deal. For about maybe 30 days to 45 days, the country basically shut down. And then after that, the real estate market skyrocketed. So those 30 days, my partner and I, my director of operations, we sat down, and Jen up here, shout out to her. We're like, listen, what can we do to take advantage of this right now? As there's fear, everyone's trying to exit the market. Let's see, maybe we can start identifying people that we can assist and bring them on board and start heavy recruiting. So I remember in 2020, we hired almost 15 people. Just in about maybe 45 days. And most of it was through Instagram and just reaching out, very sort of millennial way of like reaching and collaborating with people. And in 2020, we added the remainder. So we're at 27 out of that. Right now, the breakdown is 25 real estate agents, 2 full-time staff members, and we just brought on 5 more staff members. I'm not counting them because we just sent the ICAs out right now. And the goal for our team this year is to be at 50 people. And that's going to be 40 brokers and 10 staff members. So basically 1 person to 4 brokers. That's a ratio.
So where did you have the pivot? I mean, there was a massive pivot. It seems like from 2019 to 2021, where you said, okay, I'm going to shift this into a team. So my first conversation is, what is your value proposition for those that are joining the team? Is it leads? Is it community? Is it how do you have this explosion of growth where you got 27 agents in a 2-year period, which is pretty massive?
Yeah, so I think culture was the number one thing. I think that's one thing that, again, the reason 87% people they quit within first 4-year mark, according to NAR. I think it's just, again, there's a lot of rejection, and you need a tribe. You need to be part of a group that is keeping you accountable, that's following up. You're part of the energy. It oscillates from like top to bottom. You need that. So I think culture is something that we are very proud of. And I think that's one thing that's kept us all together through the ups and downs. We definitely have a pretty solid blueprint of success, what it looks like, what a typical real estate agent, successful real estate agent needs to be doing. What are some of the gaps? We do gap analysis on every single one of our team members when they join us. And then our operations is very, very airtight. So we make sure that when someone's on board, we're handling all their database management, we're handling all their scheduling, we're handling all their client care, and then we're handling all their transaction management. So what I mean by that is when a broker comes on board and they are ready to be a full-time agent, they do not touch paperwork whatsoever. They do not schedule their listings whatsoever. They do not coordinate with their clients once a deal is under contract from A to Z. All of that is handled by our operations team. So that's one of our value proposition because, again, going back to our Pareto rule discussion, we just realized very quickly that I want salespeople to be focused 100% on sales, not administrative tasks. We can outsource and get other people to do all of that. So that's value proposition as well. And then, yeah, of course, we're building an ISA division now, so that the concept is we're reviving a lot of dead leads. We're working on FSBO pools, expireds, canceled, and then sprinkling those leads amongst the team as well. And lastly, Jason, I'll say is once you kind of hit the 100 million number, then a lot of people just start gravitating towards you. Then you're kind of up in the ranking. Right now, we're ranked in the top 15 teams in the entire state of Illinois. Out of 40,000 plus brokers and teams, and we did that within 2 years.
Yeah. You did it relatively quickly, and congratulations on that success. I knew the question would come in, and you touched on it briefly. The bulk of your leads, it may look different now than it did 2 years ago, and I like to cover kind of both ends of the spectrum, right? As you're growing the lead count. Where was your business, let's say at the 30 million mark in 2019, where did your business come from? And then I kind of understand it. You had a pivot and went, okay, if I want to have massive volume growth, I'm going to need to do it with agents. So let's break that down into 2 different parts. 19 and prior, where did your leads come from? What did your business look like?
Yeah, so 19 and prior, again, starting out business, not too much of a heavy referral base. So a lot of it was online lead generation. So Zillow, Trulia, Zillow back in the day, again, great company, but back in the day, the price per lead made a lot more sense for us as well. It's gotten a little bit more astronomical in terms of their expenses. But we were heavily invested in that. 2020, again, the idea was, and this is tying into the second question, into duplication. We knew that, okay, this is what needs to happen, and we need to duplicate myself, duplicate my other top producers in the team, and then just basically started growing and started duplicating that. Because again, the more boots on the ground, the more exposure, the more market share, the bigger the volume, the bigger the team. That was the concept. Lead sources now are across the board. I mean, again, they're FSBOs, canceled, expired. We do aggressive call blocks every single morning, non-negotiable. We have a virtual boiler room. People can't be here. We just purchased this 9,000 square foot of a private office space, and the whole concept, it used to be a CrossFit another thing that he said that I wrote down. He said, the more action you take, the more you want to take action.
Mhm.
I had to stop and I listened. I'm like, and if you like, just the more action you take, the more you want to take action, right? And then another quote from him is like, Mike was just going back and forth. I started to believe that I'm not alone, and other team members can help me out. We can make this great. This is the right way, word by word.
Yeah.
And that's
Yep.
kind of how, like, I'm like, dude, like, if I'm trying to scale, if I can start duplicating myself, if I can start showing them what I do right, if I can get their efficiency up, dude, we'll be assassins. We're gonna go crush
There it
it.
is.
Like
There
250
it
is nothing,
is.
man.
There it is.
Right?
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, you and I, let's do this again, because I think it was a ton of fun, and I appreciate you being on as a guest. And I hope everybody got something out of this conversation. Feel free to reach out to me, guys. It's Jason at jasonmartingroup.com. Rafay, you want to share your email? Feel free. We'll put it out there and we can answer questions, help you guys. We're here to help. So listen, thank you for being a part of it, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Lab Coat Agents. We'll see you next time.